It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The Front Stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Hi, this is Brad Keselowski, 2012 NASCAR Sprint Cup champion, and you're listening to The Front Stretch.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting at Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K, fast-paced, white-knuckle, eco-friendly Honda engines, available just across the river in Council Bluffs. Make sure you get to the fastest indoor karting facility for all things racing. That's Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, 23rd Avenue, the easiest way. Use Google Maps, use Siri, or head to Joe's Karting, again, kartingwithak.com. Joining us on the phone now to break down some of the big news stories throughout the last week is writer for ESPN.com, Bob Pockrass. How you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good. And Bob, we got a lot to talk about today. I tell you, NASCAR has made a lot of news in the last week and a half, but let's start off with one of the stories that's hitting home to a lot of Tony Stewart fans, and that's his injury with a non-racing related accident. Have you been able to kind of siphon out how long he's expected to be out of the car?
Well, all the doctors I've been able to talk to expect that Tony will miss 2 to 3 months because of the broken back. He had what they called a fracture stabilizing surgery. So it wasn't a spinal fusion surgery, which would possibly take him longer to heal. But they said to expect the bone needing 2 to 3 months to heal, and there's really not much he can do to quicken the process. You know, he's got to let that bone heal, or he risks devastating back injury if he were to get into another wreck. So you're looking probably, maybe late April at the earliest, but more than likely sometime in May.
We may be seeing him sometime around the GoBowling.com 400 at Kansas Speedway. Let's maybe put a light pen in that and say that's when he makes his return. Do you think there's a possibility NASCAR will grant him a medical exemption for this?
I think they will. I don't see how. Well, I guess I could see how, but the fact that they granted Kyle Busch a waiver, I think pretty much means they'll grant anybody a waiver for virtually any sort of injury. Now, granted, Kyle's did happen in a NASCAR-related event. NASCAR felt they took some of the blame possibly for not having an energy-absorbing barrier when Kyle had his accident. But I don't think that they're going to grant – I don't think that they're not going to grant Tony Stewart a waiver just because it happened off track. I think NASCAR – is going to be very liberal with these waivers, and unless there's some reason that they feel that somebody just is skipping races, you're going to be able to get one.
Well, he'll be the first driver outside of a Busch to get one.
Well, Denny Hamlin got one.
Well, Denny Hamlin got one. Vickers got one at the start of last year as well, before he had to actually leave again. So other people have gotten them, and so I really think NASCAR would be so much better off if they just said, hey, you got to be top 30 in points and win a race. And then if they came up upon some strange thing where somebody actually starts skipping races because they've already done it, then reinstitute the rule that you need a waiver. I just think with the sponsorship these days and everything, nobody's just going to sit out a race.
No, they all
they're
love
healthy enough to race.
They all love what they're doing. They're not going to skip a race.
Well, I mean, they love what they're doing, and they love the money that they make doing it, right?
Absolutely.
and the attention they get doing it.
They have contracts that say that they're going to race. So now, I mean, the thing that this does do is that, it does maybe make Tony, if he was thinking about trying to push coming back. And first off, let me say this. I don't think a waiver is the first thing in Tony's mind right now. They weren't all that great last year. That he's just hoping that they're running a little bit better than they were, or significantly better than, 25th, 26th like they were last year.
Yeah.
But, it does allow somebody like Tony to not necessarily push his return if he knows that, like whether he comes back on race 8, race 10, or race 12, still going to get a waiver, So I think So I think that's important.
And you kind of hinted on a little bit there, too. Just getting the waiver, that's probably the smallest hurdle he has to get through. He still has to get up into the top 30. And if we're talking out for 3 months, he's going to have somewhere around 15 races, maybe 12 races to get into the top 30. That's a hefty amount to overcome.
I mean, look, Kyle Busch did it. I mean, he did easily in some ways, but he also had 4 wins.
Yeah.
And look, I was first to say it. I thought it was going to be hard last year when Kyle Busch missed 11 races. That was because Kyle Busch had averaged a 17th place finish or so in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at Tony Stewart last year, 28th or something in points.
He's got a lot.
He's got a lot of improving to do.
Do you think his new crew chief's going to be a big change for them, or is there a lot more issues going on with that 14 team?
I think it could help a little bit, but I really think the change in the package, the reduced downforce package, should help Tony a little bit more. Tony would still rather have the horsepower back that he had in 2014. That's not part of this package, so I think Tony hopes that the new aero package helps him. Maybe a new voice in his ear helps him, but really the change in crew chief was twofold. Not only did Chad Johnston just need to do something else because it wasn't working with Tony, but the other is to get this crew kind of ready for Clint Boyer to come in 2017. And Buga, the crew chief they've got now for Tony, is the guy they want crew chiefing Boyer in 2017.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they're going to do, along with some of the other wonderful announcements. NASCAR and this RTA announced this charter deal. Can you explain to us exactly how this is going to benefit teams down the road?
Sure. Well, it's a 9-year deal for these 36 teams that have charters. They know they're guaranteed to be in every race. They're guaranteed a certain amount of revenue during the year. So before, even if you knew you probably were going to make a race, now you can go to a sponsor and say, hey, I'm going to make the race. Instead of just trying to project, how much you're going to make in purse, maybe trying to figure out exactly where you're going to finish, there's going to be there's a set amount guaranteed for each of these 36, I believe, no matter where they finish. Now, there will be some purse as far as where you finish, but it's going to be much easier to project how much money you're going to have come in during a year. So you're going to be able to hopefully be able to appease any sponsor worries about whether you're going to make the field or not. And you're going to be able to tell potential investors or potential buyers of your team, if you want to get out, look, you're guaranteed this amount of revenue over a year. Now, of course, it's going to be up to you to get this much sponsorship to be able to still run well, but at least you kind of have an idea of how much money is coming in.
No.
So that's the benefit. Now, what are the drawbacks? Well, you've only got 4 spots open each week for people who don't have these charters.
And that's going to limit the amount of teams that are able to make their way into the Sprint Cup Series and become full-time teams.
Absolutely. And I would expect, and we really won't know until we start seeing some of the purses and how they're distributed, but I expect that money will probably be less than what you had been getting before. But look, let's face it, I took a look at all what I would consider underfunded teams, and I don't consider Furniture Row an underfunded team, but like underfunded single-car teams, like the Germains and all of them.
Tommy
Baldwin. I counted 20, Tommy Baldwin, including the ones that have already gone under, Swan Racing and some of those. And I counted 20 top 10s in over 2,000 starts over the last 8 or 9 years. So, it's been very difficult to just come into the sport and perform well.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, I've got 18 years experience as a NASCAR official, and I mean, I've worked cup races and truck races. I've been from the local dirt tracks to the top. And the first thing that came through my mind with this is they went from 7 provisionals to 36, and they're going to have 4 starting parks every week, which they'd almost got away from the last couple of years.
I don't think they're going to be starting parks because right now you have 38 full-time committed teams, and I think they'll all race. And so you may have 1 or 2, but if there's somebody who's just starting and parking, there'll probably be somebody else who will try to bring some equipment out and race. So I'd be surprised if there is 1 or 2, but I would say there's a chance.
Yeah, I mean, my point being that the points aren't worth anything anymore because those 4 spots aren't going to be any provisionals.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Unless, I guess, we're going to, but one of the reasons why people had stopped starting in parking is because 37th in points was more important than 38th in points. when you came down to those provisionals. So you're absolutely right on that point.
This feels like more of a deal that isn't going to affect the everyday fan of NASCAR. Am I right?
I think I would agree with that. What it does is that it makes the teams, I would say, a little bit more stable. It allows a team like BK Racing to have spent some money in the off season buying Michael Waltrip Racing cars because they know they're going to have money coming in during the year, and because they got 2 charters. So, before where maybe they're thinking, gosh, we're going to have to finish 30th or 25th in every race to be able to pay off these bills. Now you could say, well, I know I'm going to get this amount of money. I can spend it or project on how I'm going to spend it a little bit easier.
Well, we've talked about the changes as far as the charter is concerned and Tony Stewart's future for the year. Let's talk a little bit about some of the crew chief shuffling that's gone on for the Cup season. There seems to be quite a bit of it. We started to play musical chairs in December and January. Is there a new partnership that you see that has come together in the off season that could possibly stand out as a big winning combination?
Wow, that's a great question. To me, the one that's really interesting is Denny Hamlin and Mike Wheeler. Mike is a rookie crew chief, but he was Denny's engineer for a long time. Denny wanted him to be his crew chief last year when they made some changes, but Gibbs was determined that they give Wheeler some experience in the Xfinity Series first. So when Wheeler was obviously ready after 4 wins last year in Xfinity to be a Cup crew chief, they really had no choice but to elevate him or they were going to lose him to somebody else. So he's now with Denny. And the big question is it going to work right away? Maybe, maybe not. But Denny has all the confidence in Wheeler. And, when a driver has confidence in their crew chief, they just race better because they're more concentrating on racing rather than second-guessing the crew chief.
So was Wheeler's success the reason why a lot of us didn't really see Darian Grubb getting removed from the 19 car, but he did, was because they had to move Grubb out of there in order to keep Wheeler?
Well, they had to move, so they kept Wheeler with Hamlin, and then Dave Rogers has been with Gibbs for so long, they weren't going to get rid of him, so they moved him from Hamlin over to Edwards. And so I would say, yes, that's kind of a lot of, that's pretty much how Grubb got shuffled out. The other thing is, Grubb and Edwards did not get off to a very quick start. And even though they had a pretty solid finish, I think for people who watch them week in and week out, they maybe weren't as surprised as somebody who just was like, wow, Grubb finished 5th in points. Why in the world is he getting released?
One last question before we let you go. We've been talking with Bob Pockrass, writer for ESPN.com. You've got some fantastic articles on the worldwide leader of sports. I suggest everybody head over and kind of check out what Bob's been writing about in the offseason. We've got a lot of listeners in the Iowa Speedway area. We go over there quite a bit for some of the races, and nonetheless, Dirk and I get asked all the time, when is Iowa going to get a Cup race? Is this new 5-year deal with some tracks kind of the squasher to Iowa Speedway getting a Cup race within the next 5 years?
Well, in some ways, yes. In some ways, no. The track operators could still move a race if they want to.
Okay.
They have 5-year. The 5-year contracts doesn't permit an owner like Speedway Motorsports from buying Iowa and moving a race from one of their tracks to Iowa.
Okay.
I just think the question still, the thing is that now there's no way that NASCAR, which of course owns Iowa, could give itself a race at Iowa.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. It's very tough for them to do. You're right.
Well, it's also a fact with Iowa not selling out their races. They're not going to move into that market not knowing if they could sell the race out or not. So
yeah, and look, in reality though, NASCAR was never going to put a race and take a race away from one of the public companies and put a race in at their own track because they know the legal fight in that and antitrust concerns would have been huge.
Yeah.
So in reality, it probably wasn't going. In reality, it still probably is the same thing as before. Speedway Motorsports or ISC or Dover's going to have to buy Iowa and move a race there for it to happen.
Bob Pockrass, writer for ESPN.com. Sounds like you're fighting a little bit of the gunk that's going around.
No, a little bit, but hanging in there.
Well, you did. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk to us. Thanks a lot, Bob.
All right, thank you, guys.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back in turn number 2. We'll get our thoughts on the charter deal, on the did you see this, Dirk, earlier in the week, the EPA seeking to prevent conversion of vehicles into race vehicles? I meant to send you that article.
I actually read it on Facebook, and a lot of the local racers, and of course Kevin Presky with Midwest Dirt Track Legends has got a full forum going on it today. So
let me just tell you this before we get into the break. Don't worry so much, guys. This isn't the government wanting to shut down racing. There's a lot more to this story, and if you read the article, you'll figure it out. But we got to take a break. We'll come back at turn number 2. We'll get a full discussion about this. And then in turn number 3, we've got Doug Lovegrove. Doug's going to join us to talk about his championship at Eagle Raceway and the RaceSaver 305s. And in turn number 4, we're going to give away Arena Cross tickets for the March 5th race coming up at the event at the CenturyLink Center. So we got a big show lined up for you today. We hope you stick around for the full hour. This is The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
This is Andrew from Kosiski Auto Parts. Kosiski Auto Parts is an insurance-quality used parts supplier that can match your foreign or domestic car or truck needs. If you have a damaged or broke-down car or truck, we guarantee a clean and quality part in next-day fashion. Kosiski Auto Parts, your neighborhood premium recycled parts supplier. Call any Kosiski Auto Parts salesman today by dialing 402-731-4592 or visit us at 5040 I Street in Omaha. Kosiski Auto Parts, our quality used parts will match your car or truck's needs.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Hey guys, this is NASCAR driver Elliott Seiler, driver of the $1 million financial Ford Mustang, and you're listening to The Front Stretch.
Welcome back to The Front Stretch, heading into turn number 2, brought to you by Kosiski Auto Parts, online at Kosiski.com. Did you see that they now have an app that you can type in all the make and model about your car and get the part that you need, and then it references you to one of the salespeople, so you know what you need. And you call Andrew or one of the other salespeople, and you get the part. It makes it a lot easier. They have an app now.
Well, I was going to say, there's just about an app for everything.
Yeah.
I don't use a lot of apps on my phone, but, when I bought my compressor for my air conditioner 2 years ago, I just went online and looked it up, and, I figure if it's got it online, they'll have it on your phone.
Absolutely. And maybe it's time for us to get an app for the front stretch.
Ooh. A stretchy app.
We'll have to start checking that out, see if we can get that to do. All right, we got
a lot. Dan?
Yes, sir.
We've been battling for a year trying to do T-shirts. So.
Well, I think that more has to do with my inability to do things. That has less to do with me, like us getting permission from other people and me not really doing it. Let's talk about this charter deal that NASCAR announced on Tuesday and kind of the implications of it all. We just got done talking to Bob Pockrass about the whole thing, and the whole time they're talking about it, you see people on Facebook and the haters coming out. Honestly, if you're just a Sunday watcher and you enjoy NASCAR, you enjoy watching the racing, this pertains nothing to you. This means really nothing. To me, what it is, and feel free to, obviously you get your opinions on this, so we'll kind of go back and forth, but I think this is NASCAR's attempt to get a little bit closer to what the stick and ball sports are, because we learned a valuable lesson when Rob Kaufman decided to pull his funding away from Michael Waltrip Racing and take it over to Chip Ganassi. Michael Waltrip's up S Creek without a paddle. I mean, he's poured who knows how much money into it of his own money, and he's made money. He's a businessman. He's made money off of it, but he's put a lot of his own money into it, and it doesn't come close to making his money back or anything like that when he's selling parts and he's selling equipment. And let's be honest, there's not a lot of teams that are out there saying, I need a frame builder, I need a paint booth, I need this, I need that. They've already got that stuff. So it's going to be incredibly difficult for Michael Waltrip to sell off his portions of the team, and when he does get it all sold off, it's not going to come close to paying off what it should be worth. Now, the other side of that is if I was Jerry Jones and I decide I want to sell the Dallas Cowboys, if it's NASCAR rules, I don't have anything to sell. I don't have teams, I don't have players, but according to NASCAR and the NFL and the franchising rights, I own one of the 32 eligible teams in the NFL. So I have a value to that. And that's all, to me, this charter deal is NASCAR saying we need to put a value on these teams because there's no value on the number. Merchandising, yeah, obviously we've learned that from the 88, from the 3, from the 14. But that doesn't really... So Richard Childress Racing gets merchandising rights for Dale Earnhardt and that 3 design. They've trademarked that design. But other than that, the 42 doesn't have a lot of marketing power behind it. A lot of these teams don't have that ability like the top tier teams or the top performing drivers do. And, let's be honest, the 20 team for Joe Gibbs Racing, when Tony Stewart left, that 20 lost value because now all the Stewart fans were over going buying 14 stuff. And Joey Logano didn't have the fan base that Tony did. So just what I'm getting at is that this charter deal to me is just a way to say, despite drivers and sponsors moving around, you have a value in what you own. And what they own is one of the 36 starting positions.
Yeah, and see, I don't like the fact that they've locked that in. Like I said when we talked earlier, it went from being 7 provisionals, and that was based on points. Now there's nothing based on points. I mean, the championship is all points are for those 36 teams. Nothing else really matters as far as
Well,
points.
And let's be honest, the points didn't take a big effect for 20th or let's even say 16th to 36th. They didn't really make that big of a difference anyways because them shuffling around from race to race didn't matter much anyways.
Points took effect for everybody. If Carl Edwards was number 1 in points and he went out and crashed in qualifying, he got a provisional.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Edwards now, if he's number 1 in points and he goes out and crashes in qualifying, he don't make the race.
Well, but in all actuality, he's going to because Joe Gibbs Racing is going to purchase one of those provisionals
Maybe.
Well, that's what Rob Kaufman said on Tuesday, though. He said Tony Stewart Racing and Stuart Haas Racing and Joe Gibbs Racing have already talked to him about purchasing his 2 provisionals that he had for the 15 and the 55. And so he's going to sell it to them. So Carl Edwards will have one.
Do you think if somebody else comes in with one of these other smaller teams and comes in with a backer and says, I don't know what they're paying you, but I'll double it?
Well, that's possible. I mean, listen. We don't know what the price is going to be on these charters. And we talked about it on Facebook on Tuesday. Rob Kaufman said he expects it to be somewhere around single-digit millions. So somewhere between $1 and $9 million is what these charters are going to be worth. But very easily, somebody could walk in and say, "Well, I've got an investor. I'll give you $25 million for that," and he's going to turn to Tony Stewart Racing and go, "Sorry."
Well, put it this way, you get into antitrust laws and stuff like that. If he had deals worked out with Joe Gibbs and Stuart Haas Racing before this deal was announced, I'll guarantee those deals ain't happening.
Say that again.
Antitrust.
You lost me. Yeah, you lost me.
He can't have the deals in place before the deal's in place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if he come out and said, I had a deal with Tony Stewart 3 months ago knowing this charter was going to come into effect, there's going to be such a lawsuit coming around and there'll be a big class action deal and Tony, Stuart Haas won't get it and Joe Gibbs won't get it.
Yeah.
Because it's collusion.
These guys are smart guys. I'm sure they've had a conversation about, hey, I'd like to open up negotiations with you or whatever. I'm sure that the deal's not done, ink signed, everything like that. But, but I think this charter deal is good only for NASCAR team owners. That's all it affects.
But
and honestly, it's not going to affect because seriously, I was worried a couple of years ago when they switched to the top 25 rule, and before it used to be that the points from the previous season carried over for the first 5 races,
right,
and then that went away, and there was a possibility that one of your big stars was going to miss out on a race because during qualifying they wrecked out. Well, they didn't have any provisionals. They didn't have points built up or something like that.
They did have provisionals. That's just it. And see,
some of them did. There were some other ones, like I'm pulling off the top of my head, but I believe one of my concerns was Dale Earnhardt Jr. because he's never won a championship, and so he didn't have a past champions provisional. And
the first year he went to Hendrick.
Yeah.
Because the 88 car had no points, had no team owner points.
Right.
That was the only year that he had an issue,
and
like a startup
You know
team.
this as well as I do. Carl Edwards isn't going to go out there and throw it into the wall in the first 5 races. There's always the chance.
But
his organization and his talent is better than that. That's the reason why he's always up there in the front.
Exactly. But, he could crash in qualifying, and if he doesn't have this charter, it's got nothing to do with the first 5 races anymore.
Yeah.
It's all 26 races. It's all 36 races, technically.
Yeah. There's a lot still need to unfold about this whole charter deal, but I'm excited about where this is going simply because I'm happy for the team owners that something like what happened to Rob Kaufman and Michael Waltrip won't happen to these other guys. Tommy Baldwin sat up on that stage on Tuesday, and that's one guy that he's been involved in the sport for 20 years.
His whole life.
He doesn't have much to show for everything he's invested in.
But that's been his choice.
Right. It's been his choice. But this, and I think this also makes NASCAR more appealing to business people, so we may actually see more money coming into the sport. I think it's slim, but a billionaire like Jerry Jones isn't going to buy a NASCAR team if there's a chance that it's going to fold in a year or two and he's out his $1 billion that he bought into it or whatever. That happened a couple of years ago when there was the football stars that all got together and started a team, and then that fizzled away and went away, and that was just lost money. They didn't get anything off of that. Well, this is a little bit different now because if they invest in a sport, they invest in a team, then they've at least got something tangible to say, if I need to get out of it, I can sell this.
If they buy one of the charter teams.
Right, if they buy one of the charter teams.
But if they decide they want to get into the sport and they've got backing and they've got sponsorships set up with multi-year deals and there's no charter available, they're not guaranteed to get into these races. And I think guaranteeing 90% of the field a spot is wrong. That's like guaranteeing in the NFL, if there's 32 teams, let's say 28 of you are going to make the playoffs.
But you don't guarantee that. We're not guaranteeing that 28 people are going to make the playoffs. Our playoffs, there's still only going to be 16 people that are going to make it. You're guaranteeing the NFL teams a chance at making the playoffs. That's what you're guaranteeing the MLB and the NBA teams. You're guaranteeing every one of those teams. You have a guarantee. You have a shot at the playoffs.
But if two rich people decide they want to start new NFL franchises, they pick out their city, they can put the money together, the NFL will grant those 2 franchises.
Well, but that's not really possible. That may not be because the owners get to vote on that.
The owners, it's all going to be more revenue, so they're all going to let people in. They always have.
Not if it's going to interfere with their revenue in their city. I mean, Kansas City's not going to allow another NFL team to come in within a certain range.
It's not a big enough market for Kansas City.
But I'm using that as an example. The owners are going to protect their interests.
I'll guarantee you right now, since the team moved out of St. Louis, if somebody wants to come into St. Louis as one of the cities, and there's a second city, there's got to be 2 for the NFL or even Major League Baseball. Got to be even numbers. Kansas City won't have anything to do with, they won't be able to say no. St. Louis supported its own team. That's not why the team's moving out of there.
Let's put a little wedge back in this baby and get her straightened out. Get back to racing conversation. The charter, I think we could table that for a while and just kind of see how this whole thing plays out. Maybe it's not even a thing we need to really worth talking about in the next couple of weeks because it won't matter to Maine people. But let's talk about this Dirt on Dirt article that came across the Facebook wires. The first thing that makes me mad is that it's a complete scare tactic title, which is what newspapers and bloggers they do this to get views, to get
sensationalize it.
The EPA is not going after racing. Let's just clear that up right now. And it says right in the article that this has been something that when the EPA comes out with these new environmental restrictions and stuff like that.
Gas mileage laws and that type of thing.
They're not going after racing, but a lot of times it encompasses racing. And so there's interest groups like SEMA, who has submitted some work and is working with the EPA to say, can you please put an exemption in there for racing? And every single time this has come up, racing has got an exemption. So before you get all freaked out that the government's coming after you and the government's going to shut down dirt racing, let's just remind ourselves that dirt racing is a big tax revenue for a lot of cities. It's a big revenue generator for a lot of these cities. They sell a ton of beer. They get entertainment taxes. I mean, Nebraska makes a boatload off of I-80 and Eagle off of the entertainment tax they get to charge for everybody that walks through those gates. Off the beer sales. I mean, the beer sales, my God, you want to complain about the reason why taxes are so high or beer prices are so high? It's not necessarily the tracks that are setting that. But read the whole article, understand the whole article. Am I missing anything out of that article?
Well, the one comment I made as we were talking earlier about all the stuff on Facebook with Kevin Preskey's post, and I don't remember who made the other one. I want to say it was your old co-host Buddy Ray that made it, but I commented on both of them that any race car engine that is tuned anywhere close to correctly is going to pass an emission test.
These things are a lot of times emissions a little bit more friendly than what we have on the streets. They may burn more fuel, but their emissions wise, they're a lot more efficient.
Absolutely, that's my point.
Yeah,
they're made to run at 100% efficiency, where a street car is made to run at about 80. To be honest with you,
and that's out of the factory. Then after it sits in your year, you put 50,000 miles on it, it's going to drop off unless you're tuning it.
Well, that, and I mean, people don't quite take near as good a care as a street car engine. I mean, people change their oil and stuff like that, but not near what the race car people do.
Yeah.
The engines are built to different tolerances, so that the race car engine's tighter to start with. The race car engine, like I said, with a properly tuned carburetor, is going to be a lot more efficient than these fuel injection units that you see on the street cars. And then you get into the quality of gas you run.
Yeah.
Now the subcompact guys and maybe your hobby stock guys that are running pump gas are running the same gas, so that's a little bit different deal. But obviously a late model or a sprint car running alcohol, the sprint car is so efficient with that alcohol, it's ridiculous.
This is just simply the government wants, doing, and what I want them to do is to step into the consumer market and say, okay, guys, it's time to tighten things up again, because we're killing our environment, we're killing our resources, so let's step in, let's tighten them up again, okay? And unfortunately, racing is feeling the effect of that, but the good news is that every time that the government has done that, they've said, okay, well, you guys don't count for this, because you're a modified, you're a creation for, don't worry about it, is what we're trying to say. Good news is, SEMA's on our side. You guys can write your congressmen, you guys can write your senators, take action, because let's not sit back and say, oh, it'll work its way out, and then the next thing we know, oh, crap, it didn't. So don't worry too much about it, but if you feel the need, go ahead and contact your senator and your congressman.
And the guy that wrote the article has got everybody talking, which is what every writer wants.
Exactly. He's got a lot. I mean, it was all over Facebook on Tuesday afternoon. I couldn't believe how I scrolled through my page. And thankfully, everybody in the racing community was talking about it, because that's what needs to happen.
Well, they took notice.
Right. That's exactly what needed to happen. He brought it to our attention, and I think what he was just saying was make sure that the EPA knows that they need to have this exemption in there. Let's take a break. We'll come back in turn number 3. We're going to have a conversation with Doug Lovegrove. He was the RaceSaver 305 champion at Eagle Raceway last year, and we're going to talk to him about that and his plans for 2016. I think you're going to like this conversation. He was a fun guy to talk to. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100 plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
I'm Brian Scott, driver of the number 2 Shore Lodge Chevrolet, and you're listening to the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, heading into turn number 3, and it's time to sit down with the RaceSaver 305 champion for 2015 Eagle Raceway. Doug Lovegrove joining us. How you doing this morning, sir?
I am good.
Have you been enjoying your championship as a champion should?
I think I have finished every position at Eagle Raceway at least once. And so I've seen Mike Boston win the points a lot of times, and I should have paid better attention to how he celebrated.
Never heard it put that way.
It was quite the suspenseful win. I mean, you just took it by 1 point over Shannon Pointer.
Sean Pointer.
Sean Pointer, yeah.
Yeah, I think 3 laps to go. I passed him around the outside, and I bet he was wishing he had a rearview mirror, but he didn't.
If he'd have thrown the block, would you have used the chrome horn?
I would have.
Yeah, yes. They meant that much.
I didn't have to move him, and I was pretty excited about that.
Good.
I was just trying to finish. I knew my car was pretty good, and that I thought if I could keep it on all 4 wheels, that there was a pretty good shot at it.
I didn't think they had a chrome horn on a sprint car. I know you got the slide job to use, but
we usually use the big right rear.
Okay.
Bounce them around.
Well, I've seen a couple of guys use the chrome horn, but I don't think they're front runners. that may be why.
Yeah, occasionally, as long as there's until they get to lap traffic, I imagine.
So before you jumped into a 305 at Eagle Raceway, what were you racing before that?
I ran 360 sprint cars for maybe 13 or 14 years.
Wow.
I was Rookie of the Year in '97 at Eagle Raceway.
Okay. And did you make the switch when Eagle made the switch?
I got in 3/4 the way through their second year.
Okay. What was the reason for the switch? Was it a money thing? Was it because really there's only the Nebraska 360 around here that's running on a regular basis?
Yeah, a lot of these years I had the trademark cow car, when I had Kemp's Dairy, which before that was Gillette Nebraska Dairy and Goodrich, and they were an excellent sponsor, and they made it pretty easy to keep up with everybody. And that went away, and I just saw that the motors, there's no tech. You'd pit next to somebody and they'd change headers, and you'd notice that they had wallered out their exhaust ports, which you can't do. And I was playing by the rules in a lawless society.
That can get pretty frustrating quickly, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, and to get the top of the line, probably best you can get, you're going to spend $50,000 on a 360. And so in my mind, I was thinking, well, it's hardly limited anymore, because if I'm going to do that, I'd rather be in a 410. And as the Eagle Raceway weekly shows went away, I'm like, well, if I have to travel, then I'd even make even more sense to be in a 410. But then the 305, we came up with one of those. I had one of my sponsors that kind of wanted me out at Eagle, so we did that, and I think we won 3 of them pretty quickly. And I was like, wow, this is a whole lot more fun. Trying to run down the Ford motors and guys that race 3 times more than I do a year.
Yeah. And I've heard from people who kind of bounce back and forth between the 360 and the 305 that there is a considerable difference in driving style, because that 360 gives you quite a bit more horsepower to be able to make up for any kind of mistake you may make.
Absolutely. A guy in a 305, especially when it's tacky, it has to be pretty bad for you to be able to pass him, without pressure. And in a 360, your motor can get you out of a lot of trouble. And from what I understand, a 410 is even, better. Mm-hmm. That, the more motor, the easier it is to drive, as long as you can handle the speed.
Yeah, the one thing, though, when you start going up from the 305 to the 360 to the 410, like you're saying, along with the bill going up to build the engine a little bit, the maintenance bill goes up quite a bit, and it's a lot more frequent.
It does, and I listened to your show quite a bit when there was all the changing, and, some people were mad about it and not mad about it, and anybody that says that 360 and 305 racing, that the only difference is the cost of the engine, and that you need to have a some $1,000 305 to be competitive. Roger Hayden built my motor, and I think this season we ended the season with probably 40 some nights on it.
Wow.
And I think I gave him complete, I think it was $6,500.
Wow. That's a lot cheaper than a lot of engines out there, despite the classes.
Yeah, typically my 360, just to freshen, we would run it the whole year. We'd maybe put 25 shows on it, And just the freshen bill is usually over $7,000.
And what'd you have to do? How many sets of valve springs did you go through in that 40 nights? 3?
None.
Wow.
Another advantage?
I don't change it. And to be honest, this year I might change them a little more. I've done some measuring on some new ones versus, my fatigued ones. But I was just always making sure that my seat pressure was right at 120, everything, so they'd have to hold their head right to make sure. And those motors, French has, he's an interesting character, but he has certainly done. He knows what he's doing. The way they have set it up, he's got buying $4,000 injections and that. They're neat and they're pretty, and they probably are easier to tune, but they certainly aren't. It isn't worth the money in my world.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about money being a major issue and how it can really run away with people being so competitive to outspend each other, the RaceSaver 305 class is a nice safe haven for those that need to race on a budget.
Yeah, and it's just so many of the things that I appreciate about racing and the competition and all that aren't lost on that class in my world.
Did you ever race? You kind of talked about it, but I got the feeling you've never raced a 410 before?
I have not. Actually, a million years ago, Bill Krowski, who kind of is a staple over at the Knoxville crowd, rented the track at Knoxville for him and Terry McCarl to practice on. And guy that was helping me at the time, Jerry Beck, who raced sprint cars around here 10 years ago, we went over and I was to drive McCrowski's car because I was trying to get a ride in it. And we got over there and it absolutely downpoured the entire day. And that was my only shot. And so far, anyways, that I just didn't get it done. I'll never forget. We ate at Godfather's Pizza, and Terry McCarl is just an obnoxious kind of guy. Holy cow!
I've heard that.
I can't imagine. I can't believe he's not in jail.
I've heard that too.
He was throwing the salad bar plates all the way across the restaurant at us, and yeah. He's an interesting cat.
305 RaceSaver 2015 champion out at Eagle Raceway, Doug Lovegrove talking to us. So what's your 2016 looking like? Are you going to try to go race maybe Xfinity now that you've won a championship at Eagle Raceway?
Well, yeah, I thought about drag racing, but then I realized I don't know anything about it. And
you don't have to. Just step on the gas and stop at the end.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the guy in the lane next to me would do when I showed him a wheel.
Well, some people say the stopping at the end is optional, so.
As long as there's room.
You're going to be back out at Eagle Raceway for the points championship?
For the first time since '97. I guess, I got injured for a couple years in there, and I had some guys drive my car while I was trying to get my body back together. I don't know that we're going to run weekly at Eagle. Mm-hmm. We will definitely be out there. We'll run all of the SSN tour shows.
Okay.
And we talked about maybe traveling a little bit. It's changed for me a lot in the last 5 years. I got married and got a now 9-year-old daughter out of that. And then we had who's now 4. And then we had twins that are now 2. And so for me, the weekly grind, or at least my wife thinks it's too much.
Oh, wait until she sees you start traveling all the time.
So basically, what I've tried to negotiate is maybe we might go run 3 nights in a row, and that the third one of the nights might include Eagle. We might go north and run 3 nights in a row, and then maybe take a week or 2 off. Okay. So that I'm just not at a racetrack every single Saturday night my entire life.
With that kind of a spread in your children's years, it's really hard to bring them all to the track and kind of make it a family thing because
right.
The youngest ones can get cranky and need to go to bed. Well, then you got to drive. It can get real complicated at that point.
Yeah, it is.
Another reason to just be a crazy cat guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Four-year-old
ought to argument for that.
4-year-old ought to be grooving tires by now.
Yeah, I have a picture of her actually grooving tires.
Oh, good. Get that kid to work. I mean, there's those relaxed child labor laws in the United States are pretty nice.
9-year-old ought to be able to change valve springs.
Yeah, I tell him this car is not going to wash itself.
There you go.
What about that 9-year-old? Is he kind of getting the bug to go do a little racing himself? Does he want to get into a kart?
Okay. So I kind of, in some ways, I think it's going to end up that I hit the lottery on children because the 9-year-old is a girl.
Okay.
The 4-year-old is a girl. And then at that point, my wife was like, no, we should have one more and try for a boy. And I'm like, I don't care. We'll have what we have. And so, of course, she gets pregnant with twins. and it's a boy and a girl, and the boy has Down syndrome. And so I'm never going to have to talk any of my kids out of a race car unless the girls want to do it, and I think they're kind of chicken right now, and that's fine with me.
Keep them away from Shaylee Bade, because she's going to
exactly.
She will. Oh, not only will she make them into racers, she'll sell them a car. And
and every night they come, they will stand at her trailer in line for 20 minutes to get her autograph again, and then they come down to mine and go, "Can we go?" Well,
that's
wonderful.
all they're there for. Dad won tonight.
Exactly.
Can we celebrate? Nah, we're ready to go. Shaylee gave us our autograph.
We got what we were after. So
well, maybe Shaylee's got marketing down. Maybe she changes her autograph from week to week.
It could be. Hopefully she prints different cards out.
Oh, Doug, we do appreciate you joining us. It's been a great talking to you. Best luck in 2016, all right?
Thank you very much. I think we'll have a great year, no matter how it looks.
Good. Glad to hear it. We'll see you soon at the track, all right, man?
You bet.
Congrats on that championship.
Thank you.
So again, Doug Lovegrove, driver of the number 1 RaceSaver 305 at Eagle Raceway, won the championship in 2015. Plans kind of up in the air for 2016 as far as what they're going to do. You can catch him from time to time out at Eagle Raceway, though. Go and say hi to him and make sure to make him feel a little bit better and go get his autograph.
Well, if he doesn't race Eagle and try and defend his championship, I think that'll be probably the first person on the local level that I've heard that wasn't going to defend a title of some kind.
Yeah, that's
Never
kind of
heard
odd.
of
It's odd. I mean, the way that series is growing at Eagle Raceway, it's getting much harder to defend your title, but to not even try. I mean, he's got a lot of things up in the air right now that he's kind of trying to balance.
And there's probably some of the guys that ran second, third, fourth type situation that are probably throwing a party right now if they listen to this show, and he's not going to come back. All right.
The point standings was Doug Lovegrove won it, Sean Pointer 1 point back, Terry Richards 17 back, Joey Daly 28 back, Grossenbacher 45 back, Adam Gullion 53 back. Not far. I mean, that's there's 100 points between top 10.
Well, that's 2 nights of racing, so.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back here on the front stretch.
We have all been there before. Broken car part in your hand and some snot-nosed punk behind the counter has no idea what he is talking about, but he guarantees that this part will fix your car. You pay an arm and a leg for the replacement, get it home, and sure enough, it doesn't fit your car. Now, learn from your mistake and give an experienced salesperson at Kosiski Auto Parts a call today at 402-731-4592. Kosiski Auto Parts will get you back on the road with your arms and legs still attached.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Hey, this is Ryan Newman, driver of the number 31 Caterpillar Chevrolet, and you're listening to the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Just about ready to wrap this baby up. We do appreciate you joining us this Sunday morning, Dirk. This has been the question I've had for the last couple of weeks.
So Daytona's next week.
Okay. Are we one more weekend away, or are we 2 weekends away? Because technically the weekend's not over yet, so that's kind of the gray area. We're just going to say we're a week away.
Racing season started last night.
Oh, that was beautiful, wasn't it? Oh.
So, yeah, we are in racing season officially. I mean, we get the Twins on Thursday. Got qualifying today, as long as the weather holds. Then qualifying today, the Twins Thursday, the truck race Friday, Xfinity race Saturday, and then the big boys go at it Sunday.
It's finally back, and I was telling everybody we had the I-80 Speedway Awards banquet a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling everybody I actually had one of the most vivid dreams I've had in a long time. I was just sitting in the booth at I-80 Speedway. I was calling the races. There was nothing like normally sometimes there's something weird about a dream, like, I don't know, you're walking down the street and all of a sudden aliens land, and then all of a sudden you're like Duke Nukem and you're fighting aliens off. I'm just sitting that's my dreams.
I'm like, where are you going with this, bud?
I think we all know I have a pretty vivid imagination, but so there was nothing extraordinary about it. Like, I remembered in my dream that I had been in the pits talking with some drivers, and then I was up in the booth and I'm calling the race, and it's the sun setting and it's gorgeous out, and then I woke up and I'm not even kidding, Dirk. I almost started crying because I was like, it's still January. I still have to get to April before I can get back to that. And so, but it's getting ever so closer. And now we can get closer. We get the Daytona 500 coming up. And by the way, have you gotten signed up for the Pick'ems contest yet? The Beat Dirk contest. That's all a part of it all. You can win yourself a Miller High Life, a throwback hat autographed by Brad Keselowski, and
plus whatever else comes along during the season.
Man, I tell you what, we're getting some cool prizes in. Plus, we'll be walking around all the dirt races around the area at Eagle Raceway, I-80 Speedway, Crawford. We'll go around all these different places. We'll get some of the big names. We'll get them to autograph hero cards, and we'll go to Iowa Speedway and Kansas Speedway, and who knows where else, and we'll get them to autograph some stuff. And by the end of the year, I was really honestly surprised at some of the prizes we were able to collect. There was some really cool stuff, and not to mention like the lug nuts. That's just kind of a cool little keepsake that people can have and say, well, I was at that Kansas race, and then Dirk and Dan went and got me some lug nuts from one of my favorite drivers. And so those are just some cool things that you can get as a part of the Pick'ems contest. Don't forget to register, frontstretch590@gmail.com.
And I know one thing this year is I'm not making the mistake that I made last year when I was doing my lug nut collection, because I had 2 chances and I missed Jeff Gordon.
Oh.
And I've been kicking myself all winter. This year I will not miss Tony Stewart if he is in a car at Kansas Speedway.
Yeah, I wonder, we're thinking way, way ahead, but I kind of wonder if maybe a strategy for Tony isn't to get, and I guess I shouldn't say who's going to be in the car because but when we recorded on Tuesday night, we didn't know, but they're supposed to make the announcement on Thursday or Friday of who's going to be in the car for the 14 while Tony's being replaced. And so we'll make that on the Facebook page so that way you guys can keep up to date with that stuff. But I wonder if this isn't a long road for Tony to get back, if maybe it's not worth it. He just says, I think I got to retire and let somebody else have a chance of putting that 14 in the chase and maybe even in Homestead for the final weekend.
Well, I look at it, depending on who gets a seat. I mean, I'm thinking it's going to be Boyer. I mean, that's just kind of like the natural progression deal as they get him out of his deal.
Right. You would think they would do their best to get him out of that car, because that's the most pertinent for their long term, is to go ahead and get him in that 14 car and working with Bug, the new crew chief for the 14 team. And I only say Bug because I can't actually pronounce his full name. It's Polish, it's Russian, it's Swedish.
It's an alphabet.
Whoo, yeah, there's vowels next to woof, but we'll just call him Bug. But get him in that 14 car and get those guys working together now.
Exactly, and I mean, Boyer's got enough experience. If Boyer and Bug gel, the B&B boys, if they gel, and he wins a race and makes the chase, he's going to be in the car all year.
Yeah.
End of story.
I think so.
If he's got a real good start in points, and I mean, they run 3 or 4 top 5s, he's going to stay in the car.
Well, let's just face it. It doesn't take hard to do better than Tony in 2015.
He had a bad year. That stuff happens.
Yeah, and I give him his reason why. I think anybody that had to deal with what he's had to deal with for 2 years, broken leg, the incident with the Kevin Ward situation, I don't blame him at all for struggling. But I think you're absolutely right. It's your first try is to go get Clint Boyer. We'll have to find out. You guys know by now when the show's airing, if you're ahead of the Facebook page, who the replacement is for the 14, and it'll be interesting to see who does that.
Well, I think Bob, when we interviewed him earlier, he brought up the reason why Tony had a bad year. They took away that horsepower.
Yeah.
And, he didn't do much when he first started back in the Busch Series, the Xfinity Series now. Mm-hmm. He didn't do much, but when he stepped up to the high horsepower Sprint Cup cars, he got right with the program in a big hurry.
We hear this stuff all the time, and we hear it on our level too. When we're talking about 410 Sprint cars to 360 Sprint cars to 305 Sprint cars, we just heard Doug Lovegrove talk about it, that when you go into a 305 and you've got less horsepower, you've got to be a better driver. I mean, you've got to be one of the best, because you can't make a mistake. In a 410 and a 360, you've got the engine to make up for that mistake. 305, you don't have that. And
right.
that may be why, like you were just talking about there, Tony didn't have that horsepower to make up for. He was a 410 guy. He didn't like racing 360s. And I sure as tell you he wouldn't cared for racing 305s.
No.
Because he wants all them horsies underneath his hood that he can get. So maybe this will be his remedy. And we heard it a lot on the race radio last year. He hated that car. He hated that setup, that rules package.
Well, he didn't have the horsepower. If the car was a little bit off, he didn't have the makeup with the gas pedal.
Absolutely. All right, do you want to give away some tickets to Arena Cross coming up in a couple of weeks at the CenturyLink Center?
Do we have to give them away? Can't we sell them?
I tried. They won't let me sell them. Do you want to do dirt or NASCAR?
Hey, we're a dirt show, and it's a dirt race that they're doing.
Okay. This should be a pretty easy one. Let's see. I'm trying to decide which one I want to do. Who became the first driver to win back-to-back Silver Dollar National Championships at I-80 Speedway? They're easy. If you pay attention to our show at all, you know who that answer is. So give us a call, 402.
Can I give him a hint?
No, it's too easy.
Anybody that listens to this show knows this is Dan's man crush.
Mm-hmm. But that actually doesn't sum it up because I've got quite a few. 402-573-0590. That's the number to call to tell us who won back-to-back Silver Dollar National Championships. It's only been one driver. There's been 6 champions?
5 or 6.
6? I think it's 6. And now one of them has won back-to-back. So who is it? 402-573-0590. Those are the digits to call to make sure you can get yourself a family 4-pack of tickets to Arena Cross at the CenturyLink Center in Omaha coming up on March 5th. That's a Saturday night. It's going to be a fun time. We're also going to have a driver coming on the show in a couple of weeks to kind of promote that show, so that should be a lot of fun. Once again, 402-573-0590. So give us a call, 402-573-0590. Did I miss anything for the show today?
No, but the motocross races are really cool. I mean, if you've never been, and don't want to waste the money, or you think waste the money, win these tickets, go for yourself, and watch these guys, get their 30 and 40 foot of air going over these jumps. It is really wild.
Make sure you join us next Sunday at Quaker Steak and Lube for the Daytona 500 party. I'm telling you what, this is going to be a shindig of all shindigs. You will not be a settler when you go to this event. CD 105.9, Quaker Steak and Lube, and the Front Stretch are all joining forces to have one big party at Quaker Steak and Lube.
We going to play some trivia?
We're going to play some trivia that day. We're going to play NASCAR bingo. We're going to do all sorts of fun stuff.
NASCAR bingo.
Quaker Steak has been buying a bunch of little driver stuff to give away to fans. We've got tickets to give away to I-80 Speedway and Eagle Raceway. We've got prizes to give away from our prize vault. CD 105 is going to be giving away a bunch of stuff. So it's going to be a great time. Starts at 11. Green flag for the Daytona 500 is at noon. A little bit after noon. Now, you can come down, get information on the Pick'ems contest. You can sign up then. It's going to be a whole big fun time at Quaker Steak and Lube. Hope you can join us for the Daytona 500 party next weekend at Quaker Steak and Lube, presented by the Front Stretch Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining us. You missed any part of the show, head over to the YouTube channel. We'll post the show on our Facebook page on the YouTube channel, so you can find it over there. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. We will talk to you next Sunday to get you ready for the Daytona 500, the Great American Race.
I'm in.
We'll be back next Sunday to do it all again. This is the Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the Front Stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.